Be talking about Swissballs. So Swissballs are one of the most versatile training tools you can find, and they're perfect for use in the home. So hence the timing of this video, because a lot of people are looking for equipment to use in the home because of the coronavirus and self-isolation and quarantine type workouts. So I've done a stack of videos and information about resistance bands already, and stability balls will be right up there, or Swissballs as they're also known, as one of my first things I'd recommend to anyone who wants to get something, because similar to the resistance bands, they have a few really amazing benefits for the home. First, they don't take up hardly any room, they don't cost very much at all, so it's really a simple investment as opposed to dumbbells and that, which are up for hundreds if not thousands to get a full set of those. And you can do a stack of things with them, so they're not just a piece of equipment that only does one thing, like an ab wheel, for example. You can only do one, maybe two exercises with it tops. With these, like the resistance bands, you can use them for multiple things, and as I'll show you in this video, sometimes it can be used to help you, and other times it can be used to hurt you. So as I've just mentioned, then sometimes it can help you to do things and challenge you at the other end. So this is where they're a bit misunderstood, and a lot of people say, and the first thing they think of is people standing on them and doing crazy stunts with them, and a lot of people think, no, they're no good for your strength, and as I'll show you in this video, that's completely false. Sure, they are abused at times, but if you use them wisely, and you'll see and I'll explain to you the origin behind them, you'll begin to appreciate their uses a lot more than what you might have first thought. So for a beginner or a person with injury, they can be really, really good, and I use them a lot with beginners and people, especially people with injury, because the reason is it helps them. We can use the ball to help them position correctly. So what I mean by that is sometimes either there's skill, or maybe there's pain, or maybe there's just significant weakness. They just cannot get in the right position for us to execute an exercise that they need to learn, or maybe to improve flexibility in an area that's just difficult to do on their own. The ball is useful because it's soft and it has that sort of cushion feel. You can roll it underneath your chest to assist with stability with things. I can roll it into certain positions for my arm, and I'll show you a couple of examples in a second. This is an example of a super effective stretch through the quad, especially in the knee joint, to restore full range of motion. Very common for people with knee injury to lose this. The standing stretch of the equivalent standing thing does nowhere near as much as this one does. The alternative to this is with a partner or a therapist, with you lying down face down, but that would mean you'd have to do that stretch. You'd have to go and visit a therapist every day. So where you could use this ball to help you get in that position. So it's a perfect training tool for that reason. So examples of where I might be using a ball, and these are just specifically for mobility, this is the same sort of quad stretch I showed you before. This is a good hip stretch for the outside of the posteriors. This is very good for a person with obviously hip pain, but also back pain. The ball helps to prop them up straight, because they would just fall out to the side. This is a very effective stretch for the lats. The balls are useful because you can roll it to the side and find the exact angle that you're looking for. The pecs, you can roll this and move this from a pec major stretch to a pec minor stretch just by rolling the ball in various positions. So all of these are great examples of how useful the Swissball can be in helping you to get in a position you may not be able to do on your own. But it's not just the mobility side of things. So this is where I may use the Swissball to help me with stability, or even positioning within a movement. So for example, within a squat, and I can use the ball to position so I can generate the extension in my thoracic spine and position of down below just by giving me a helping hand. All right. Here's another example of me using it for a neck exercise to strengthen the front of the neck. All these are taken from YouTube videos I've done before, so you can go on the channel and you'll be able to find them. This is a great exercise where I can use the soft ball to push into my head to give me that feeling of stability through the neck there. Where I use it for a bench press, or in this case, or a dumbbell chest press, where we lie on the ball, much better than lying on a bench, because the ball's round it doesn't squash my scapula and restrict it from movement. I still have freedom of movement on this, and the beauty of it is I still need to use my legs. So I'm actually generating some stability through the legs, through the glutes and hamstrings and through the core, so I don't roll off the ball. So I can turn a standard bench press exercise into a much more effective one. I still get everything that I would have got with the arms. I just get a heaps more other things with it. Stability challenges through, so I'm using the ball to help me position well for a hip extension. Quite a difficult exercise, and this will be the progression, the single leg deadlift. So again, a ball's more effective than a bench because I can roll it and guide my hip into the movement, where a bench is not going to move. Might give me more stability, but it's this lack of stability that was the problem in the first place. So there's several examples of how I've used it to assist me, and you could probably argue on these ones and probably are using it to challenge me as well. So now, where did the origin of Swissball training? Most people think it's quite a new thing, but when you really, if you look into it, you can just do a Google search on this and you'll find it out. But the origin is actually quite a long time ago, almost 60 years ago, and I'll put this is invented by an engineer for a, it was a toy called Gymnastik. So where it was sort of taken and used is some therapists in the field of rehabilitation, and they were more like physical therapists and working with extreme cases of neurological problems, so people who had difficulty moving sort of like with stroke or partial paralysis and developmental problems. And they found that this toy was a useful training tool for them to assist their patients in learning to move again. And you can read this from the screen if you like, but basically a Swiss physical therapist started incorporating into a training or a practice all the time for specifically postural re-education and back training. So hence the name Swissball, because she was a Swiss therapist. So and then in the 1980s, so about 20 years later, when when the Cold War was sort of breaking down and other countries were starting to share information more freely, and Americans learning from Europeans and so forth, that you started to started to venture back into the America and then throughout the rest of the world. So that's quite an interesting trace back of the origin of it. But you can sort of see it wasn't used to stand on and do crazy things. It was used specifically for the purpose of re-educating movement and posture and things like that. So this leads me to why it's so good for stability. So the advantage that Swissball has over most other exercises, even really good exercises like chin-ups and push-ups and all those things, squats even, is that the Swissball can train you in 3 planes of movement. So the 3 planes, which I put the picture here, sagittal plane is the one that most of the people are moving in. So that's like where I was saying, where you're moving in a forward and backward line. So you think about it like a lunge, a squat, a push-up. They're all moving forward and back. You are sort of stuck in that straight line. The coronal plane, or frontal plane as it's also known, is the one where you're sort of flexing from side to side. So if you're sort of side flexing, like if you imagine the oblique type things, and we've done videos on suitcase carries and that before, side planks, that's an example of frontal plane movement. Transverse plane is where you're rotating around, so it's like your wood chops and rotational type movement. Swissballs are unique in that you can train all 3 of these planes at the same time. And yeah, especially the frontal plane, it really does challenge the frontal plane, which is very important because most injuries occur in the frontal plane. Very rarely do they occur in the sagittal plane. That's where we see huge problems with the knee, for example. So knees where there's flexion sideways, so we see firstly patellofemoral problems, ITB friction and all that sort of stuff, and then severe cases are anterior cruciate ligament, complete tears and ruptures. But we also see problems with the discs in the back because it's also lateral flexion that compresses through the discs. So a loss of frontal plane stability is a huge problem that needs to be addressed, and it can't be corrected with sagittal plane exercises. You need to correct it with frontal plane movement. So that's where these exercises are very important, because you can actually start to train them that way. So And the beauty of it is because they sort of have a reflex timing to them all. Like there's something that you can't premeditate or anticipate, you have to react to it. It really enhances the postural stability firing, and it's not necessarily their strength that you're really tapping into, it's more their timing, their reflex timing. And in most cases the back pain, and there's tons of research that's proven, is that either the stabilizers don't switch on early enough or at all. Swissballs are awesome for correcting that, because they excite the nervous system and they really challenge not just stability of the spine but throughout all of the joints. So when you do this and you get better and better at it, like you would with any exercise, it allows you to create a better transfer of strength and power with your other more global standing movements, especially your sagittal-plane stuff, where you may have had a weakness. It may be due to these poor stability and firing patterns of those small muscles. So this is where these are a really unique tool. So there's a couple of exercises of that's quite a simple exercise, the forward ball roll. The lateral ball roll is significantly harder. This is an extremely difficult movement where you're just moving sideways across the ball. So this is specifically moving in the frontal plane, and really challenges the glute on one side and the oblique on the other, very much like you would with a suitcase carry. So here's another couple of my favourites. So I showed you the forward ball roll already, but here's a jackknife. This is another awesome one, great one for hip control, and stability through the lumbar spine. Basically it's a progression of the forward ball roll. We saw the single leg deadlift before. This one's an excellent exercise for challenging glute strength and again that frontal plane stability. This is the single arm chest press. Before I showed you two arms, this is single arm, so basically just overloading one side, and you can't put your hand down to save it. The only thing that can save you is your glute and your obliques. Alright, so there's many others. These are just some of the examples of some of the ones I use a lot, and to give you an idea of how I've gone from using it for a mobility purpose or stability trying to assist me. Now I'm using it to try and challenge me. Circus tricks is where it's probably got a bad rap now. I don't have a problem if you're good enough to do them, and you can prove that you're safe enough to do it. And here's an example of Mel, who's able to do this, and she loves doing these ones. Probably doesn't like standing as much, but this kneeling's no challenge to her. She's really worked it out. It's quite simple. She enjoys it. She's never fallen. She's worked it out pretty. It took her a bit of time to get it, but once she got it right, it's pretty simple. I don't mind if people want to use it for that, but really for the majority of us though, the risk of learning these, especially the standing on it, I really don't see much point in being able to do that. I think you will get a lot more from learning to squat better on the ground. We do use balance boards and things at times, but not. I would prefer people just to be really good at doing it on the ground. Probably be better at doing a single leg squat. You get probably more from a single leg squat than standing on a ball. And like I put here, there's just many safer ways to improve your stability. So I don't really think these are a good thing. If you can do them, it's fine, but otherwise don't worry about them. Make sure you've got the right size of the ball. Now, this is a question I asked a lot. How do you know what size? Well, here's a rough idea of the sizes that would be ideal for the size that of what you are. For most people, I would say it's this 65 centimetre covers probably the majority of the population. There's not so many people that are under 5'6". There's not so many people over 6'3". Majority of people are between this one. So that would be the stand. This ball here is a 65 centimetre ball. So that just means that the height of the ball should be where your hip would be like perfectly in a 90-degree angle. If it's the right height. If it's too big for you, it would be on a sort of a shallower angle, and if it's too low, it would be on a steep angle. All right. That's a rough estimate, and most manufacturers will have that on there when you're going to buy that anyway. So just make sure you use the right size ball for your training, and you'll get the most out of it. If you have any questions or comments, just feel free to go to our website. There's tons of reports here. There's some really good books. There's a free report. This is actually one of the chapters of this book, which has 100 programs in there that you can use. When there's stacks of programs I've put in there for you using Swissballs, and heaps of other things to keep your training ideas fresh and constantly challenging you, so things don't get boring. So yeah, if you check out in the description under the video, because I've put a whole heap of links there for help of ideas and things like that. And I hope this video has given you some insight into the use of Swissballs and that you're using them at home right now. All right, I look forward to seeing you on our next video.